Coulommiers, east of Paris, France. January 28, 1994. A flight bound for London carrying 24 passengers encounters an incredible sight. A huge brown object, several miles away from the aircraft, hangs in the air.
Clearly, when any senior pilot on a major airliner sees and reports a UFO, this lends extra credibility to the event.
I have never saw such a thing. It was quite different of everything I saw before. Quite different. We realized it was not from this planet.
Journalist and author Leslie Kane met the eyewitness pilot in 2007.
Jean-Charles Duboc was piloting an Air France plane. His co-pilot chauffeur was beside him. It was about 1:15 in the afternoon.
Pilot Duboc vividly remembers what happened that day.
It was a very clear weather. We had more than 100 nautical miles of visibility. The steward came to bring us a coffee and in the cockpit and saw this object. I identified it as a plane which was turning. And the bank angle was 45 degrees, and it is quite dangerous. I saw this plane is going to stall.
Although its outline appears fuzzy and indistinct, the UFO seems to morph into a V shape. Yet it still appears to maintain the same 30-mile distance from the plane.
It was absolutely huge, and it was red-brown with fuzzy edges, immobilized in the sky. I realized it was over Paris, and this was a very important surprise, of course. We saw it becoming transparent and disappearing. Disappeared totally, without moving. It was absolutely crazy, really.
They watched it steadily for about a minute, which may not seem like a long time to most people, but it actually is quite a long time to be focusing on something.
Duboc and his team make an immediate call to find out if air traffic control is tracking this object on radar.
We asked them if they had traffic at this position, and we gave the size and the appearance and moving of this thing. And they saw nothing on the radar, and that's all. We continue our flight.
The flight went on successfully to land in London. Air regulations state that a pilot must file a report about a near miss when he lands. But Captain Duboc decides against this.
During 3 years, I never made a report, written report. A UFO among pilots in Air-France are taboo, and I refuse absolutely to discuss of this.
3 years later, in February 1997, Captain Duboc comes across an article in a local magazine that changes his mind. The article describes a series of unexplained UFO sightings in France, including his own. It reveals not only that air traffic control had reported the incident, even if Duboc and his team hadn't. But more importantly, Duboc discovers that military radar did track a UFO that day.
There was a radar identification by the CODA, the Space Control of France. And this was really surprising, and this is why I made a report to the gendarmerie. Because when you have a radar identification, something exists.
The police begin an inquiry, which they close unsolved 5 months later, leading the French Space Agency to probe further.
The French are unique in the fact that they have a very highly functioning agency. It's just part of the equivalent of their NASA, which has been investigating UFO cases since 1977.
The team is headed up by experienced investigator Jean-Jacques Velasco. It was Velasco who discovered that military radar had been able to log the UFO, as it was more powerful than the radar available to the air traffic control at the time of the sighting.
Donc là, ce sont les données militaires qui nous ont permis de valider cette enquête. ce qui est fait extrêmement intéressant, c'est qu'on a pu confronter le témoignage de l'équipage avec les données radar.
The radar data appears to corroborate the Air France crew's observations.
So, this is our track to London. This was Coulommiers. And we saw on the radar the object was there.
L'équipage, donc le commandant et son adjoint, vont dire que lorsqu'ils ont vu disparaître l'objet, les contours de l'objet sont devenus flous et il a disparu. Effectivement, au niveau du radar, s'arrête exactement au moment où ils décrivent la disparition de l'objet.
There is another alternative explanation. A weather balloon had been released 50 miles away on the other side of Paris at 12:18, 56 minutes before the sighting. Was the mystery about to be solved? Could the pilots have mistaken the weather balloon for their UFO? Meteorologist Thomas Schaffernacher thinks he knows the answer.
They saw an oval shape on the horizon, red-orange in color. It then changed shape into a triangle. Now, weather balloons are red-orange in color. Now, the aeroplane was flying at a height of around 35,000 feet, and that is the limit of most weather balloons. They reach that level in the atmosphere, and then they burst. Before they burst, they take on a very large size because the pressure high in the atmosphere is a lot lower. And here's a suggestion. Imagine the latex bursting and taking on a V shape carried by the jet stream. The latex wouldn't just drop to the ground, it would be carried some distance right through the atmosphere by those strong winds.
Weather balloons are set off all of the time, all over the world. And so yes, this could be a weather balloon that had been launched in the immediate vicinity of this Air France jet. Having said that, though, it's the normal practice that notice to airmen are given to say that there's a launch imminent. Yes, it's always possible that this aircraft didn't hear those warnings. It is, though, unlikely.
This is a joke. No, it's not a weather balloon. When we saw this object, we realized that it was not a weather balloon. It was quite different because it was absolutely huge. We had an immediate impression of a not known object, non-identified object.
Et les ballons météorologiques, ce sont des petits ballons en néoprène. Le pilote a indiqué que l'objet était de la dimension du petit doigt. Et le petit doigt à 40 km, c'est quand même 300 mètres. Ce qui ne pouvait pas du tout correspondre à un quelconque ballon. Et l'hypothèse du ballon a été évacuée.
Some said, oh, it's an hallucination, but an hallucination is 1%, not 3%. So it was real. Was it a balloon? No, not a 300 meters balloon. We have no possibility to scientifically explain this sighting.